Alright guys, here we go with our next online lesson. So we're going to move to lesson 5, which is multiplying polynomials. So what we did last week was adding and subtracting. So we're going to bump it up just a little bit to multiplying. Okay, so we're going to start with number 1. We are going to be multiplying a monomial. Remember, a monomial is just one term, to a binomial. Binomial means two terms. Okay, so how you multiply polynomials is the basic distributive property that we learned in middle school. So all we're going to do is we're going to take the term that's in the front and we're going to distribute it to everybody that's inside the parentheses. And we're going to do that by multiplication. So the first thing we're going to multiply is we're going to do 8x times 6x. So we'll do the numbers first. So 8 times 6 is 48. And then we'll do the letters. X times x is x squared. Okay, then we'll come back and we'll grab the 8x again, but this time we will go to the next guy in the parentheses, which is a positive 6. So 8x times 6. So 6 doesn't have a variable. So when you multiply your numbers first, 8 times 6 to get a positive 48, since x doesn't have anybody else to multiply to, then he just stays x. So we're left with 48x squared plus 48x. Those are not like terms. One of them is x squared, one of them is x, so they cannot be combined together. So that is your final answer. All right, number 2, same thing. We have a monomial, so that's one term, times a binomial. Binomial means two terms. So we're going to come and we're going to grab 7n, take him to 6n. So do your numbers. 7 times 6 gets me 42. N times n is n squared. Come back and grab the 7n again, but this time goes to the 3. So 7 times 3 gets me 21. And then there's not another n to multiply by, so bring him down. N squared and n, they are not like terms. So you cannot add these two together. That is your final answer. All right, number 3, stepping it up just a little bit. Now we have a monomial times a trinomial. It's the exact same concept. You're going to take your first term and you're just going to distribute it to everybody inside the parentheses. The only difference this time is you're going to multiply 3 times instead of just 2. So we'll grab 2k cubed times 2k squared. So do our coefficients first. 2 times 2 is 4. And then k cubed times k squared gets me k to the 5th. This is what we were learning right before we were getting out, is multiplying when we had exponents. When you multiply the same base, you add their exponents. That's why the k cubed times k squared become k to the 5th. Okay, come back and grab 2k cubed times positive 5k. So 2 times 5 is 10. And then k cubed times k, so there's an understood 1k there. So that would be k to the 4th. And then lastly, grab 2k cubed all the way to this negative 4. Notice that is a negative 4. So when I multiply my coefficients first, I'm going to say 2 times negative 4. And that gets me negative 8. And then k cubed times nothing else there. So bring down k cubed. And then none of these are like terms. You have 5th, 4th cubed. They're all different. So that is your final answer. All right, number 4, once again, we have a monomial, which is one term, times a trinomial, which is 3 terms, so just distributive property. So 7 times 6x squared would be 42x squared. He didn't have an x that we're multiplying this time, so you just keep what they've given you. 7 times 9xy, so that would be a positive 63xy. And then a 7 times a 10y squared would get me a positive 70y squared. Okay. None of those are like terms. This is an x squared, an xy, and a y squared. They're not like. That would be your final answer. Okay. So now we're going to step it up a little bit more, and this time we're going to go to a binomial times a binomial. So we have 2 terms here, and we're going to multiply it by 2 more terms here. Still the same concept in the first 4 problems. We are going to do the distributive property. What we're going to do this time is we're going to take the 2n, multiply him to everybody, then we're going to come back and grab the 2 and multiply him to everybody. So you're still distributing, it's just a little bit more this time. So let me back this out. So we're going to grab our 2n first. So 2n times 6n is going to be 12n squared. And then come back and grab the 2n to the 1 gets me 2n. 2 times 1 is 2, and then n times not another n. You don't have anything left. All right, now come back and grab what you haven't used yet, which is the 2. So 2 times 6n gets me 12n. And then 2 times 1 gets me a positive 2. Okay, so now let's look and see if we do have some like terms now. So here I have an n squared. There's no other n squareds, okay? Here I have an n. Ooh, but there's another n. So this time, these 2 guys are actually like terms. So I can clean this up just a little bit more. So 12n squared didn't have anybody else, so I'm going to keep him. 2n plus 12n makes 14n. You have 2 n's plus 12 more n's is 14 n's. And then the number 2 is just a constant. He doesn't have anything else, so leave him. And that will be your final answer. All right, so once again, number 6, we're going to do a binomial times a binomial. So we're going to do 6p times 5p would be 30p squared. And then we're going to grab 6p again, and this time we're multiplying it by negative 8. So that would be negative 48p. Okay, so we're done with 6p. We distributed 6p to everybody in that second parenthesis. So we're going to come back and grab the 8 and do the same thing. So 8 times 5p gets me 40p. And then 8 times a negative 8 gets me negative 64. Okay, so let's see if we've got some like terms again. So p squared, there are no more p squareds. Negative 48p. Ooh, I do have somebody that looks like him. I have a positive 40p. So we're going to combine those 2 together. So 30p squared, he didn't have any more friends, so he stays by himself. Combine these 2. Remember, the word combine means to just add them together. So negative 48p plus 40p. So if you do negative 48 plus 40 in your calculator, you're going to get negative 8. So negative 8p. And then my constant, I didn't have any other constant, so he stays the same. Okay. All right, number 7, bumping it up just a little bit more than the last 2. We're going to do a binomial times a trinomial. Binomial is 2 terms. Trinomial is 3 terms. Same exact concept we were just doing. We're fixing to come in, and we're going to take the 4a, and we're going to multiply him to everybody. And then we'll come underneath, grab the 2, and multiply him to everybody. So let's start with our 4a. So 4a times 6a squared is 24, because 4 times 6 is 24. And then a times a squared is a cubed, because you add the exponents. There's an understood 1 here, so 1 plus 2, that's where the 3 comes from. Okay, 4a times negative a. Okay, so let's talk about the negative a. He actually does have a coefficient in front of him. Remember, a coefficient is the number in front of a variable. I just can't see it. It's an understood 1 right there. So if I'm multiplying 4 times the coefficient of negative 1, that gets me negative 4. And then a times a would be a squared. Okay, and then lastly, the 4a goes to the 2. So 4 times 2 gets me an 8, and then I didn't have another a to multiply, so I keep him. All right, so we're going to come back and we're going to grab the 2. So positive 2 times 6a squared would get me 2 times 6 is 12. He didn't have another a, so you keep the a squared from the 6. Grab the 2, take him to the negative a. Remember, that's an understood negative 1 there. So 2 times negative 1 is a negative 2a. And then finally, the 2 to the other 2. 2 times 2 gets me 4. Okay, so let's go through, find us some like terms. A cubed. No more a cubes. He doesn't have any friends. Okay, here's an a squared. Ooh, I have another a squared. So those two guys right there are like. And then I have an a here and I have an a there. So those two guys are like. And then there's no other constants. So let's combine those together. So the a cubed had no friends, so keep him. If I combine my a squareds, I have negative 4 plus 12. Negative 4a squareds plus 12a squareds gets me 8a squareds. Negative 4 plus 12. That's where the 8 comes from. Okay, now let's do our a's. 8a and negative 2a. So if I combine an 8 and a negative 2, that gets me 6. So 6 a's. And then keep your constant, which is a 4. And that's your final answer. Okay. All right, last one of the lesson. This is a big guy. This is a trinomial to a trinomial. Again, same concept. All we're doing is the distributive property. We're going to grab the 6n squared, take him to everybody, come back, grab the negative 6n to everybody, come back, grab the negative 5 to everybody. So this time we're actually going to end up multiplying 9 times. So here we go. Let's get started. 6n squared, 7n squared. So 6 times 7 gets me 42. N squared times n squared is n to the 4th. All right, 6n squared to 6n. 6 times 6 is 36. N squared times n is n cubed. 6n squared times negative 5. Negative 30 n squared, because he didn't have another n. All right, so we're done with 6n squared. So now it is negative 6n's turn. So negative 6n to 7n squared would be a negative. Negative 6 times 7, negative 42. N times n squared is n cubed. Negative 6n to positive 6n. So do your numbers first. Negative 6 times positive 6, negative 36. N times n is n squared. Okay. And then negative 6n to negative 5. This time we have a negative 6 times a negative 5. That's a positive 30n. All right, so we're done with this guy. We're done with this guy. So all we have left is the negative 5. So here we go. We're going to have negative 5 times 7n squared. That would be negative 35n squared. Negative 5 times 6n is negative 30n. And negative 5 times negative 5 is a positive 25. All right, so now we go through and we look for some like terms. So n to the 4th, there are no more n to the 4th, so we're going to keep him. Okay, n cubed, I have one here, I have one here, so 36 and a negative 42, so you're adding those together. 36 and a negative 42 gets me negative 6n cubed. Okay. All right. Go to our n squareds. I have one here, here, and here. So now I have 3 to combine. Negative 30, a negative 36, and a negative 35. So negative 30 plus negative 36 plus negative 35 is negative 101, and then keep your n squared. All right, then I have an n and an n here. Ooh, let's look at this one. I have a 30n minus 30n. 30n minus 30n is nothing. So those canceled each other out. And so then the only thing you have left is your plus 25. So there's your final answer. All right, guys, so now you have your assignment for Lesson 5. It will be posted after this as well. Please take your time on this, guys, and get you some paper out. Write all your work down on a paper before you click your answer on your Google form. And please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you, guys.